Every rock fan has those albums, the ones that hit you the first time and suddenly music sounds different. Today, we're focusing on three of those records for Dorian Prescott. Three albums that helped shape rock history and maybe explained how he became the rock scholar he is today.
Oh, yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special episode of Rockers to Dockers. My name is Dorian Prescott.
And I'm Nova Starwick. Today, we'll be discussing and breaking down Dorian's top three hard rock and metal albums of the 1980s.
Individually, we each picked three albums that were most influential to us and to the larger music scene as well. We'll be focusing on mine today. For each pick, I'll tell you a little bit about the song's history and impact, and I'll contextualize it through my own experiences and memories. Furthermore, we'll be commenting and perhaps interrogating one another's picks because next time it's Nova's turn.
And of course, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Join the conversation anytime at rockers2doctors.com. Now, let's dive into Dorian's top three rock and metal albums of the 1980s in 3, 2, 1.
So my first pick is the first Van Halen album. And as you could see, that album is extremely important to me. I didn't hear that when it came out. I was only 1 year old when that was released. But I first heard Van Halen right about the time when they broke up. It was in 1984. I'd seen the video for Panama on my aunt and uncle's TV. I was not allowed to watch MTV. I was definitely not allowed to watch anything that was heavy metal. But my cousin let me watch Panama with him. And I was blown away the way that Mike Anthony was flying across the stage. And that set the tone. When I heard Jump, again, I had the same kind of reaction. I love that song. That stuck in my mind for a while. Then around sixth grade, when I started wanting to learn how to play guitar, my cousin said, "Hey, have you ever heard Eruption by Van Halen?" I had no idea what that was. So he brought me up to his bedroom and he put in the first Van Halen album and he hit play. And what I heard that day was transcendent. I thought it was two. I asked him, "Is that more than one guitarist? There's got to be two there." He said, "No, he's doing this thing called tapping." And wow, that made me want to become a guitarist because he sounded like a god on that record. Inspired me in a million ways. But now, I'm a bassist. I eventually gave up the six string and went to the superior four string instrument. I've come to appreciate Mike Anthony a lot. That first Van Halen album is definitely a lesson in the sonic importance of ego humiliation. He is the most humble bassist on the planet. And you may have heard other bassists praising him for being in the pocket. Well, he seriously is in the pocket on that album. He is the platonic ideal. Every single note is perfect and very simple. Simple is not easy. As a bassist, I will tell you, some of the most difficult songs I play are by AC/DC. They sound simple, but they are not. You have to be precise, and he is absolutely precise. Other thing I love about this album is it has the best 1, 2, 3 bang of the 70s, early 80s. And that's in record talk. It's the first three tracks of an album are supposed to get the listener's attention right away and hook you. And for this one, I got Running with the Devil, which is a banger. It was a hit song. And it goes, talking about love. And then we get Eruption, and then you tie that into You Really Got Me. I mean, it's just nonstop from the beginning. The speed of I'm the One is amazing. It's melodically playful, especially in the lyrics. The showstopper, Ice Cream Man, incredible. So this hands down influenced me in so many ways. Did you have the same response when you heard this album?
Well, so my first Van Halen album was 1984. And I fell in love with Jump. I had to have the album. I got it. And from there, I went backwards with Van Halen. And I have to say, at that time, I didn't really get Eruption. It sounded cool, but I didn't get it, what the huge thing was. But I was in a different place on my music journey at that point. Now, and for quite a while, I really appreciate everything that he did on Eruption and how influential that was and how different it was. Because by the time I discovered that album, I was hearing people doing things similarly. There was more of that shredding. So it wasn't
Right.
like this is the first time I'm ever hearing this. I'd heard Eddie do his thing outside of
Right.
Eruption. So, going back and re-listening to the album, yeah, it's an amazing album. It keeps going, all of it, all the way through. I love Ain't Talking About Love. That's one of my favorites. off of that album. Now, do you remember when we went to see Van Halen in concert?
I do remember, and Vince Neil opened, and it was, at, like, a horse track or something like that in Middletown.
It was the fairgrounds.
It was the fairgrounds. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, they do at the fairgrounds. It was in the Speedway. It was a racetrack
Right,
that they
right.
did the concerts in, during the fair time.
I hate to say I don't really remember the concert much, usually I do, but that was the day that Joanna broke up with me, and I was really sad that whole time. But I do
Uh,
remember Mike Anthony setting his bass on fire and going like that and the flames coming out of it. That was really cool.
I enjoyed the concert. We went with my friend Kim, and, me and Kim, we were dancing the whole time, and
I
you
don't
were not.
remember your friend Kim being there. Wow. I was that
What?
depressed.
You were that depressed because Kim was really cute.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Oh, well.
I
So
think
if
she had a
this
boyfriend at the time anyway, so
ah,
yeah.
if this album is new to any of you, some a little bit of background on it. It was recorded in on started recording in August 29th, 1977, with produced by Ted Templeman. It was recorded at the Sunset Sound in Los Angeles. It took 3 weeks. It just took 3 weeks to complete, and it cost $40,000. And I don't know the adjustment for inflation, but $40,000 even in 1977 for an album, that's not expensive. That's not an expensive album at all. And from what I understand, what saved them a lot of money is they did it the old school way, where they just recorded the band. It wasn't like 100% multi-track the whole way. The whole band played together. Dave was in an isolation booth, and it was pretty much a live album. They went back and did some overdubs and whatnot, but you can hear the energy, the live energy. It feels like a concert, and that's part of the draw of the album to me as well.
So, Dorian, let me ask you a question. If
Hmm.
someone heard Van Halen 1 for the very first time today, they might just hear it like, oh, this is just classic rock. But in 1978, it sounded like the future. Do you think it still feels revolutionary now, or has rock actually caught up with it?
Whoa, that's a tough one. Um,
I told you I was going to be
Is it
prepared.
revolutionary now from if I borrow the perspective of a younger person? Would it
Yeah.
be are you asking if it would be revolutionary to them?
Yeah.
I don't think it would be musically, it would not be. Perhaps the personality of the band, what they did, the lifestyle, the entire rock star thing of the 1980s, that would seem very novel to them, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Right. Now, talking about their personalities, what I find interesting about this record is it's really not just Eddie's guitar that makes everything work. We all think it's Eddie's guitar, but there's more. David Lee Roth brings this swagger and this personality that really becomes the blueprint for so many rock frontmen in the 80s. So, how much of this album's impact actually comes from Eddie's playing versus the chemistry of the entire band and what David Lee Roth brought to it as well?
So heavy metal music, I think this is a theory of mine. It might not be people might not agree with this, but I think the role of a vocalist in a hard rock and a heavy metal band, especially one like Van Halen, is the vocals have to sound like the electric guitar doing a solo. Like the vocal has to have the same kind of squeal and wail and the trills, all of that. So this is my theory. I think David Lee Roth and Eddie Van Halen are kind of doing the same exact thing musically. They're both sort of playing the same instrument the same way, and that's really what binds them together to me.
Okay. I could see that. Now, the moment really everyone talks about on this album is Eruption, obviously. It's about 90 seconds long and it basically rewrote the rules of rock guitar. So, do you think that might be the single most influential guitar moment in rock history?
Yes, absolutely. I don't
And
know what comes in second, but yeah,
do you think the album would still have been legendary without Eruption?
it would not have been legend. No, wait, no. I was too quick to answer that. I'm too quick to answer. Yes, it would be. If you took Eruption off there, it would be legendary.
Okay.
It would
I think
feel
so
an
too.
inch off. It would feel an inch off from where it should be, but it would still be legendary.
It would, because like I said, when I first listened to it, I didn't get Eruption. So the album was still great for me, even though I didn't get Eruption. And now that
I
I get Eruption, it's just so much better.
I don't understand how it didn't just nuke you.
Well, because I heard 1984, so I'd already been
Uh,
hearing Eddie and I'd been hearing people copying Eddie
right.
and doing his thing by that point. So going back to that album and listening to Eruption for the first time, it was just kind of a guitar solo. And I was just like,
Right.
okay.
By the time I had first heard Eruption, I had only heard 2 Van Halen songs, Panama and Jump, and then 2 David Lee Roth songs, California Girls and Just a Gigolo. So that was my exposure to Van Halen. So, yeah, I guess it makes sense that when I hear Eruption, I'm not used to that.
Yeah, uh, because I digested 1984 and I'd had exposure to Van Halen just from listening to the radios. Even though I didn't have Van Halen 1 and listened to it all the way through, I had a lot of exposure to those songs that had been on the album already.
Right. Yep. Now, I think somebody in the comments is going to point out that Eddie Van Halen did not invent tapping. And yeah, but he made it cool and he did it through a very particular, unique sound, that the brown sound that he uses. He made it something completely different. He rewrote it. But there are videos of Steve Hackett from Genesis in 1968 doing that stuff. Yeah. Just
So,
wanted to cover our ground.
Dorian, do you have any final thoughts on Van Halen 1 before we move to your next pick?
I think if you are young and you're discovering rock music, this is the second album you should start with. Well, the next one will be the next one we're going to talk about. But so yeah, don't look over this one. My second pick is the obvious one, Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses. Now, I don't have the poster back there, and the reason for that is I like the artwork on Use Your Illusions much more than the artwork from Appetite for Destruction. But the album itself, it's just one of the greatest albums ever. I first heard that, and again, in sixth grade, so much was going on in sixth grade when the skateboarder from down the street named Eddie came to my house with a bag full of cassettes he just bought. He got an Iron Maiden, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, Speak of the Devil from Ozzy, and Appetite for Destruction. Now, this was when I was really scared of satanic heavy metal. And he played me a little Iron Maiden, and I was like, ah! Then he played me some Ozzy, and the cover of Speak of the Devil freaked me out. Ah! Then he played me a little bit of Appetite for Destruction. I heard Welcome to the Jungle, and I remember going, wow, this is pure chaos, but I love it. And then the next song, It's So Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
Mhm,
second track.
mhm, mhm.
When he says, turn around, Rick, I got another use for you. And he says, F off. I had him shut it off because my parents had the scope on me about music. They did not want me listening to heavy metal music.
You know,
That's Go ahead.
you must have thought I was a little bit dangerous because, I was listening to all of those albums, and I
Yeah,
had some of them myself, yeah.
I I I might have texted you about this a while back. I was actually worried because one day we went over to your place and you took me out into the woods where there was a campfire and like a little altar, and I was like, oh my gosh, what are she and her friends doing? And they're like some little idol or whatever. Pop culture had us really, really scared of demons back then. Mm.
They did, and I think some of my friends just really played into that to seem more
Yeah,
dangerous and scary than they were.
right.
Yeah.
Guns N' Roses didn't scare me though because they weren't singing about the devil. They were tough guys and they look cool. They look different from all the other, Warrant and Winger and all them. I was really digging this change that was going on. That summer you couldn't I mean everywhere you went you were hearing Sweet Child of Mine. Like they blew up and I got the cassette, my mother compensated it, and then I got it again a dub version of it. It influenced me so much that my first band we called it Pistols and Daffodils. We thought we would be the next Guns N' Roses. Years of obsession for this band of collecting the B-sides. I would buy the singles so I could hear the other side of the single, bootlegs, and still I'm really into it. This morning, I went to see if their first ever release, which was a 12-inch vinyl EP called Live as a Mother Effin' Suicide, if there were any copies on eBay of that, and they're like $500 to $2,000 a pop.
What?
Yeah, yeah. Those are I knew one person that had it, and it was that skateboard guy, Eddie. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they have been pretty much the center of rock for me all these years.
They're so important to you that we actually did 2 episodes. Was it just 2 or did we do 3 for Guns N' Roses?
Ooh, I think it was two. Yeah.
2 episodes on their
Right.
lost albums, and
Yep.
that was all Dorian. Dorian knew all of that history, all of those facts, and I was just sitting there like, "Really? Really?"
Indeed.
Oh, I think you can hear Gwen growling. Gwen is my cat. She's been making a little appearance today, and she's angry. She's
I
stuck on
actually
me.
did hear it. It sounds like a lawnmower in the distance.
Yeah, she's
Oh
stuck
boy.
on me.
No, that's what that is. I had no idea what you're holding up. That's a paw.
She's stuck, and I'm afraid to unstick her. Anyway, I do have some questions for you about Guns N' Roses.
Please do ask.
All right. So by the late 80s, the Sunset Strip scene is everywhere. Big hair, polished production, huge choruses, and then Guns N' Roses shows up, sounding like a street fight compared to everything else on the radio at that time. So, what was it about Appetite for Destruction that made it such an important album for you? Why is it in your number 2 slot?
Again, it's very similar to Van Halen. It's not just the music, it was the whole mystique of the band. But I think around this time in my life, when I really got into them was like 7th and 8th grade. This is gonna be weird. I started to recognize how different I am from all my peers. Like, I went to a very sports-centric high school. So, Guns N' Roses to me, they were the losers. Like, that's sort of that's the image they embraced. That's the history that we inferred from them, that they were like the scum of the earth, the losers who were never thought nobody ever thought they'd ever make it. And then we see, they're selling out stadiums. So they gave me a lot of hope. And I love the music. So I had these two things. I love the music and I had hope that I could do something like they did. And yeah, of course, if they influenced me in 100 terrible ways too. But.
So, is that why you think that the album eventually connected so strongly with audiences?
Yes, absolutely. And the timing was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. uh, Sunset Strip, early 80s, you had a certain kind of metal, and that grew into a very glam metal, the real big hair and the makeup and all that. And I'm feeling like people were wanting just a little bit different, something a little bit different. And then Guns N' Roses set a new tone. If you notice, I mean, you could see how it affected bands like White Lion from one album to the next. They completely redid their wardrobe from like the bright, flashy pink and yellow to biker kind of look.
Some people argue that Guns N' Roses were basically the last great classic rock band before grunge took over. Do you buy that argument or do you see them as something different, entirely different?
To say that they're the last great classic rock band before grunge took over, I could jive with that. Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, they definitely are the culmination of so many of their own influences. Jimmy Page, Jimi Hendrix. I don't know if Janis Joplin was one of Axl's influences, but it sounds like it. Nazareth, a lot of punk music, like it all came together right there with them. I would say that in the entire history of rock, kind of merges with that album.
So, what I think is interesting, and I talked about this when the episode I did when you were away about what killed glam metal. And that the end result was that it wasn't exactly grunge, that there were other factors at play that really pushed people away from glam metal. So I won't get too into that, but I do find it interesting. And I feel like Guns N' Roses really helped to usher out that glam um, decade, that glam time in history, and helped to pave the way for grunge to take
Yep.
over. I see them as that bridge in between this is the hair metal, this is glam, and now we have moved in grunge and that pure just rock.
Right. Right. And I could definitely see how maybe I would have got punched for saying this 30 years ago, but how Appetite for Destruction sonically set the tone for grunge albums. Just the way it sounds, the sincerity, the rawness, the aggression in it. That definitely set the tone for it. But even the attitude. Yeah, the attitude is very similar. But then Guns N' Roses departed from that and gave us
They did.
you'd think they'd maybe even push it the rock harder, but that's what we got. That did not influence any grunge. I don't think so.
No, no, Appetite. Appetite did. Well, now we have to talk about Slash because we talked about Eddie and how important that guitar was and what Eddie did. And one of the things that made Guns N' Roses really feel different was Slash's guitar tone. It brought back this kind of gritty blues influence that a lot of 80s rock bands had just polished away. So, do you think that guitar style was part of why this album still really holds up today?
Absolutely. Slash is hands down a blues guitarist. And yeah, I mean, he had some great training. He grew up around a lot of musicians. I think Bob Dylan babysat him from, I read that somewhere. I don't remember where I read that. It might have been in no, I'm not going to start dropping sources. If I don't know them. Yeah, but he's hands down, he's a blues guitarist.
And what do you think about so Sweet Child of Mine, that riff that he put together was what he did to warm up.
Yeah,
And you hear that from time to time about how these just warm up riffs that people use repeatedly end up becoming these hit songs.
right.
these melodic hooks to these really big songs. What do you think about that?
What's funny about that story is he was playing it in the studio, and it was a riff that really annoyed Axl because it and Axl had described it perfectly. He said it sounds like carnival music. Like if you take it out of the context of "Sweet Child of Mine," like played it on a piano or an accordion, that's exactly what you have is carnival music. But they're a magic band. They could take a carnival riff and turn it into one of the most memorable guitar riffs ever.
Magic of Slash.
Yes, precisely.
Now, do you have any final thoughts before we wrap up on Guns N' Roses and move to your next album?
I'm still hoping that one day these 1995, 96, 97 recordings will be found. I was hoping that I'd have some fulfillment with their recent releases, but that's not going to happen. So I'm still digging through the archives, looking at YouTube every once in a while to see if somebody drops something new. Yep. So I said it earlier, I was terrified of Satan when I was growing up, and the church just kept reiterating that message. Even the Father Reynolds at the church I went to, he even gave a sermon where he talked about the influence of heavy metal music. I had to negotiate a little bit with myself, and I separated it. There's the satanic metal and then the other heavy metal, and I did not cross over into the other side, the satanic side. My friends, however, did, so I couldn't avoid it. I remember skateboarding with my friend Eric, and he put on the song Moonchild from Iron Maiden's Seventh Son of the Seventh Son album. And it scared me. I mean, he literally says Lucifer in the song. But the next one on there, a slower song called Infinite Dreams, when I left Eric's house that day, I could not get it out of my mind. The melody just played and played and played in my head. And eventually I'd find that's what Iron Maiden does to you. When in about 1989, my friend Andrew, who loved heavy metal, just, felt like being graceful to me. And he really wanted to enlighten me. So he was a big guy. I went over his house. He said, sit in that chair and do not get up. Do not. And he put on the Live After Death Iron Maiden concert video, the 2-hour concert from the World Slavery Tour with all the Egyptian imagery and the exploding mummies or whatever. He put that on TV, and I sat there. And that first song, Aces High, I was like, I found myself going like that. And then all of a sudden, I'm just blown away by the stage performance. I realized they had posters, of course, the rare ones like the women in uniform poster, which was really hard to get. I had my whole collection. Like Iron Maiden became a part of my identity because it was taboo, but I also really, really loved the music. And the album that got me into them was Powerslave. It was the one with the Egyptian imagery. That's usually not a starter album for most people. It's an album that you have to be a little bit patient with, but it gives you lots of pleasures at the right time. And if you can sit with it, it's really a great one.
So I remember coming to visit at your house and seeing all the Iron Maiden posters and hearing you talk about Iron Maiden. And I really wanted to like Iron Maiden. Like I was like, there is something here. Dorian is so into this. I need to figure this out. And at the time I just couldn't. I was too much into, pop and glam and just I couldn't wrap my head around Iron Maiden. Now I listen to them now, but back at that time I was like, this is just not for me.
Right. I think most people had that kind of reaction. I found a lot of people that I know that got into them were musicians too. So the musicians tend to gravitate toward them first.
Well, I do have some questions for you about Iron
All right.
Maiden. So Power Slave comes out in 1984. A lot of great music came out in
Mhm.
1984. When metal was exploding in all directions, thrash was starting to rise in the US, glam metal was taking over MTV, and Iron Maiden releases an album with a 13-minute song based on a 19th century poem. What made Power Slave the Iron Maiden album that is the one that stuck with you?
Okay. Well, first off, the first time I heard Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, most people fall asleep, but that one, it got tingles up my spine. That I was like, this is one of the greatest songs I've ever heard in my life. Immediately. And I think because the song is extremely theatrical, it has a narrative because the poem by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, has a narrative. It's a story. And I love stories. And the music follows the story perfectly. It responds to the story. And it has a keen sense of building up urgency and then giving that release at the end. That's the song that hooked me. But that's the last song on the album. I had to get through all the other ones
Yeah.
first. Starts with the banger, Aces High. That was, I guess you can call it their hit off that album. And the next one, 2 Minutes to Midnight, it has a strong 1, 2, 3 bang. What also really attracted to me attracted me was the imagery. Again, I said, my high school I went to was mostly football related. And so anybody that was into anything different kind of shunned. So a lot of us embraced that and we wore the t-shirts that scared everyone and offended everyone, grew our hair long. And Iron Maiden had a really, really great art and really great imagery that kind of just interrogates anyone that looks at it.
Now, Dorian, what I find interesting with Iron Maiden is they are storytellers. And Dorian is a writer. He writes stories. Do you feel that Iron Maiden may have in any way helped to encourage you as a writer or help to shape you as a writer?
Absolutely, percent. Again, back to Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. I love that song so much that I went upstairs. Now, my dad had a master's in English, and I went upstairs. And I'm like, Dad, there's this song by this heavy metal band. It's called Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. He said, Oh, it's Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And he gave me an anthology of Samuel Taylor Coleridge poems. I read it, and I tried to. He had a poem called Kubla Khan, and I tried to write my own Iron Maiden song called Kubla Khan based on the poem. So it got me writing. It got me looking at poetry that wasn't being assigned to me, the dry stuff. The literary tradition running through Iron Maiden is profound. Those guys are readers. I mean, they're constantly making literary references.
Do you think Powerslave represents the moment when heavy metal proved it could be intellectually ambitious?
Ooh, that's a good one. I don't know how that plays out on a grand scale. Personally, yes. I'm willing to bet like so many Iron Maiden fans, people that were turned on to the band at that time, became readers. Man, I should have looked this up beforehand, but Seventh Son of the Seventh Son album is based on a novel. But they got the Brave New World, they've got Greek mythology. Yeah, but I only know how I would respond to that.
Okay. Now, let me push you a little bit here. Would something like Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner even get recorded today?
No, no, I don't think so. The fans would not have the patience for that. And I'm not saying because it's 13 minutes, because there are a lot of really great 13-minute long songs, a lot of prog bands right now doing that. It's just not a lot happens for a long time in that song. Jun,
Well,
jun, 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 pretty much, for eight
yeah.
minutes.
Yeah, I listened to it this morning actually on my way to go skating. And yeah, there were some parts that there wasn't a lot going on, but I was thinking in my head because it was a live version of it that there must have been things going on in the background on the stage.
Yeah. You could hear the sound of like a ship in the
Yes,
water,
the
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 creaky
creaking,
boards. Yeah.
yes, with that little bit of guitar coming up
Right.
in it. Yeah.
And they might have the sound of an albatross cry, stuff like
Yes.
that.
Yeah, I appreciated all of those little things that were woven into the song that would enhance the story of it, and I was like, "Oh, I wish I was actually watching this because I'm sure that there's more going on, that you need to take this as a whole package, not just the song itself, but whatever was going on the stage to complement it."
Right. So when I would listen to Iron Maiden, I'd have my headphones on and my eyes closed, and Bruce Dickinson's lyrics would do something, the same thing to me that a book would do. I'd see in my head, I can see the scene of the mariner killing the albatross, like it's like watching a TV in my mind. Iron Maiden were capable of doing that. They were the kind of band that was like reading a book.
Now, a lot of fans will argue that The Number of the Beast is the definitive Iron Maiden album. So, why does Powerslave beat it for you?
Because that's the first one that I got exposed to. It's just that fallacy. There's a name for that fallacy. It's the first time you're exposed to something that's the best of it. I fully understand why Number of the Beast is considered their greatest album, although I might argue that. But yeah, and that was a turning point for the band.
Now, when you go back and listen to Powerslave now, there's really still something about the guitar harmonies and the scope of the songs that feel huge. I spent a lot of time listening to this album because I was not as familiar with it and I knew we were going to be talking about it. And I'm familiar with the other two. So over this last week, I spent a lot of time listening to this. Now, do you remember the first time you heard Powerslave and realized Iron Maiden was operating on a completely different level?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So the first exposure was when Andrew made me listen to the video, but then when I went out to buy the album, I listened to it in my headphones in the back of my parents' car, and it affected me the way that listening to Van Halen one affected me. Like that kind of wow, this is just there's so much going on here that I've never heard before.
Now, before we move on, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share about Iron Maiden?
Yeah, yeah. So I've got a new appreciation for them. It's been a long time since I listened to them. I kind of just put it aside, and I'm playing in a band now that does covers, and we added 2 minutes to midnight to our set. Steve Harris is one of the greatest bassists ever. He wrote most of their songs too. Like he's the bassist, the songwriter, and his style is so hard that there are YouTube videos of people professionals that can't do what he does with the three stroke at the speed he does. So I've definitely got a new appreciation. I have to use a pick. I can't do it. I have to, and even with a pick, it's really hard. So hands down to him being one of the greatest musicians, rock musicians of the '80s. He's just the bassist, so most people don't notice him.
I think we need a video of you doing that.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Maybe one day we just need you to have your bass set up so you could just play us a little bit of some of these things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Looking at your three choices together, they almost form a timeline of hard rock evolution. Van Halen changes the guitar world, Iron Maiden turns metal into something epic, and Guns N' Roses bring back raw attitude. Was that progression intentional when you chose these albums?
It absolutely was. Yep. Those 3 albums are kind of the perfect anchors in time for that brief, wonderful span of history when metal ruled the airwaves.
Now, I'm going to make this difficult for you. If you could only keep one of these three albums for the rest of your life and every one of them never existed, which one survives?
Oh, that's easy. I'm sorry. This is not gonna be a big hands down, I'm keeping Appetite for Destruction.
Why?
Like, because occasionally I'll pull out or pull up Van Halen 1, and I'll listen to a couple songs, and I'll be like, "Yeah, kinda yeah." Like, I love the album, but, like, I've worn it out. The same Powerslave, same thing. Like, I could hear it in my head. I could do that with Appetite for Destruction, but I don't get bored of it. Like, that album just still pumps me up. I have no idea why, but that's the one. It's almost as if I hear something new every time I listen to it.
Now, could Appetite exist if Eddie didn't exist with Eruption and Van Halen 1?
I don't see much influence or crossover in influence, but then again, that would just totally disrupt the timeline because I think Eddie Van Halen is the reason, pretty much the reason for the glam scene in LA. That's a bold statement, but I think Van Halen pretty much kicked that all off.
Your three albums actually form a pretty interesting arc in rock history. Van Halen rewires the guitar world, Iron Maiden turns metal into epic storytelling, and Guns N' Roses brings danger back into rock, which makes me slightly nervous about what my picks will say about me.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. We would love to hear from you. Tell us what your top 3 are. Tell me why you think I'm wrong about my top 3. I would love to hear that.
Check us out on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Amazon Music, and Spotify.
Until then, stay loud, stay curious, rocking with a hypothesis.